Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Kruger and I am a founding member of a community forum here in Johannesburg called the Devoted Citizens of Johannesburg. And I would like to talk to you about the influence that we as communities have in terms of governance and how we can actually get service delivery from our local government to work better. And this is really the topic that I would like to explore with you tonight. So firstly, let us look at what the traditional way is, how we are governed, and how we get the powers to be into government that's supposed to make our lives better. But why is that not happening in terms of service delivery? And we know that the current situation that we are in is actually a dire situation where service delivery is either non-existent or very poor. So this is an attempt to explain why we are finding ourselves in this situation. So typically we would have a party that represents us as citizens in government and specifically in local government. Now that party is typically led by a leader. He would have a council of selected members that would be supporting him, and maybe there's a layer in there with constituency heads that would look after a couple of ward councillors within a specific area. So this structure can be very large in terms of metro municipalities, or there's district municipalities that looks after a couple of local municipalities in the more rural areas, typically your towns. So a town would have a local municipality, but that would also be part of a district municipality. Now those structures are similar, but just differs in size. But at the bottom, we are all, as citizens, are the constituents that would like to be governed in a way that service delivery really happens efficiently, cost effectively, and we would ideally like no corruption so that our taxes gets applied to really service us. The problem we have is in the party system, the ward councillors that are elected by us as constituents into council and are supposed to be accountable to us are really accountable to the party leadership. And this situation is because they are career politicians. They may get into politics with very good intentions, but very soon, as soon as they are part of a party, there's all kinds of agendas, and us as citizens at the bottom of this pyramid really have no say once we've elected our councillors into government. The party has all the say, and it may be good for us, and it may be not. But we've got no say for let's say for every 4 years that we elect them in. For that 4 years, we are at their mercy. And the result of that is poor or no service delivery. Our taxes get spent not where we would like it to be spent. So the question is there a solution? And we believe, yes, there is. But let's first look at our current voting system that creates the scenario, or that actually contributes to this scenario that I've just explained. So our current voting system is a combination of what's called direct representation, where we've got the possibility to elect a councillor within every ward. Now that every municipality is divided into multiple wards, typically around 20,000 voters per ward. Then there's proportional representation, which is where they take all the votes within a municipality, and according to the proportional proportion of votes that's allocated to a party, that's they then allocate seats in council according to that. So 50% of our councillors are actually elected by us, and that's on one ballot paper. The other 50% is this proportional representation, where they just, and typically that's the party, then just assign those additional seats that they get based on a proportional vote to other people. That's not necessarily elected by us as citizens. And that is all done through a quota system. So there's a very complex formula how this gets calculated. And I'm not going to bore you with the details, but I will try and show you what the impact of that is and how we can influence it to our advantage. So I've taken, this is the city of Johannesburg. I've rounded some of the numbers. This is, some of the numbers are taken from the 2016 elections. But it's probably more or less in a ballpark. So what you will see in the city of Johannesburg specifically, we've got 270 seats, which means 270 councillors that can represent us in the municipal council. That 270, based on this quota system, 50% are direct representatives, what we call ward councillor, which means 135. The other 50% is the proportional representation councillors, the other 135. Now I'm going to try and keep it simple. So more or less in Johannesburg, we've got a population of 5 million adults that's eligible to vote. Of them, only 50%, more or less, are actually registered to vote. So there's already 2.5 million votes that's just not happening. So there's a huge education that we actually need to do, get people to register to vote. Now, the other sad phenomena is of the registered voters, more or less 60%, sometimes even as low as 50% actually go and vote. So there's another couple of million votes that just goes down the drain. Now what we see here, the reason why the 2.5 million goes to 3 million is, let's say it's 1.5 million people go to vote, but because of this voting system, there's 2 ballot papers. So each person actually has got 2 votes. One for his ward councillor and the other one for the proportional representation. That gives us 3 million votes if 1.5 million people goes and vote. Now, let's take a hypothetical example where of the 3 million votes, 2.4 million goes to parties, where a party will have a ward candidate and a party vote. So that 2.4 million hypothetically covers 80% of the votes. Now, we say our push is for independent candidates, and I'll explain as we go forward why that is very important for us. So we could potentially get 20% of those votes to go for independent candidates, which means 300,000 of those votes. Now, just this numbers is just as a background to say what to show you what the impact is. Let's say after everybody's voted, and this is what has happened, and there's 5 major parties that actually got the votes. In terms of the wards, it's very simple. A ward is won by a councillor. So on the ward ballot paper, those are counted, and let's say that's the result. There's, of the 5 parties, those are the seats of that. Remember that 135 seats that gets allocated, and if we say 20% of those votes goes towards independent candidates, then we've got 27 independent councillors that's voted into the local council. government council. Now, the PR seats is really where the problem is, because independent candidates, because they don't belong to a party, are not eligible for that PR votes. So the other 135 seats are then allocated proportionally based on the total number of votes that the parties get. But the votes from the independents are not counted, because effectively then where everybody that voted for them has got 2 votes, one of the votes for the ward councillor would have gone to the independent, but because there's no party to vote for, you have to either vote for another party or not vote at all. But the impact is that parties get the PR seats allocated and the independents lose out. Now, why we are so passionate about the independents is really where we dislodge them from the party structure, and we will show you now after this how we want to get them accountable back to the communities. But how we would like to change this then is to say, if we have community forums, such as the devoted Citizens of Johannesburg, we get the same rights as a party in terms of the PR vote. So now we can potentially put forward our independent candidates, and the community forum also appears on the ballot paper, and we can potentially get 27 additional seats of the 135 for the community forum, which pushes up really up to 54 councillors. Now, this is a hypothetical example. This is what we're striving towards, but this is just to give you an idea of how we can change the game. The reason why the community forum we're able to do this is because in 1996 the Electoral Act was actually changed to broaden the definition of a political party to include associations and forums and movements. And the reason why we distinguish ourselves from a party is because we are community-based. We're not politicians, we're not career politicians. It really is, and we will show you now how we structure these communities. And that is a way we can bring back the power to us as communities and basically get rid of the influence of parties, which is, we believe, not beneficial as it's supposed to be. So that's the game changer that we're looking for. Firstly, let's look at what devoted citizenship is. Now, there's a book written by Reverend Chris Matabula, who's actually also running with a community forum in Ekurhuleni, and he is standing for this coming local election. He is standing as the mayoral candidate for Ekurhuleni for his community forum. Just to show you, and they've got, I think it's 120 wards, and they've got an independent candidate in each of those wards. But the principle is, and he's documented this in his book, and this is the characteristics that we see as devoted citizens should all exhibit if we want to really take power back as communities. But some of the ones I want to highlight that's maybe very pertinent for us as GIG. So really the concept of communities, we believe, is explained by what's called the Spirit of Ubuntu. And also why we want to do this is really to leave a legacy for future generations in terms of good governance, and obviously building up our country, building up our cities, our towns, so that our children and our children's children can live in peace and be prosperous. And then there's a set of values that we believe is universal, although we base it from a biblical perspective, but it's really applicable to anybody from any faith or political background. It's you know, there's a foundation of justice, unity, equality, integrity, transparency, excellence, security, and stability, and that really embodies in the way we see when we have somebody what we want to govern us, to apply those values and base everything they do on those values. And then, of course, some of the pillars that you see there, temperance, which is another word for self-governance, which is where we see us as communities, we would really like to govern ourselves. And then diligence, which speaks to let's talk directly to service delivery. It's also excellence in service delivery, in competence. We want a competent government. And then fortitude, the courage to stand up to things like corruption and bribery and say no to that. And then prudence, wisdom in terms of town planning and, you know, the way, again, leaving a legacy for our future generations. How do you do something in a sustainable manner? And then overarching, like the roof that's depicted here, covering everything in love, patience, kindness, and humility, which again talks to the community aspects that we aspire into. So what we are proposing is a community-driven model, and we believe this is a recipe for good governance, where we take that, where we've had the party structure before, we say we as constituents would like, we know we are part of a community. The fact that you live in a certain locality, in a suburb, or where you are physically, geographically located, that is a community as such. And we would like out of a community, and in our case, because of the political system, it's demarcated through wards. We would then like to elect our ward councillors that represent us in a specific municipality. So what you will see is every municipality, the idea is to establish a community forum there, and then we will appoint or elect a management committee that will really look after the forum itself, and then also oversee the process of electing and nominating ward councillors for every ward in that specific community or in that municipality that align and subscribe to the values and the characteristics that we would like to see in people that should represent us. Once elected, and we will then mobilize and advocate into the communities that they should elect with the coming elections every 4 years. The local elections elect those candidates into council for us. Once they elected into council, the committee will perform an oversight role in terms of, you know, are they delivering back to the communities that what they promised, which really means we bring this is our model for bringing back accountability to the citizens, to us as constituents, and keep our ward councillors accountable to us. And through this, as well, as you have seen, a community forum then gets the same rights as a party to have the PR vote as well. So we will, over and above a ward councillor from every ward that we have a representative from, we will also get the PR seats in council, which will give us a stronger vote. Now, these community forums we form a network, and there's an overarching movement. In actual fact, there's two that I know of. One is Raising Righteous Rulers. The other one is One South Africa movement, led by Mr. Musi Maimane. And we all work together. It's just a network, and we support each other which is really nice. It's all community-based. It's no politics involved. It's all about good governance and how we can bring back that accountability back to the communities. And of course, then we will get proper service delivery. We will ensure through our ward councillors that they apply the right pressures onto the service agencies within local government to give us proper service delivery. And really, this is then who we are. We vote for good governance, not party politics, and there's similar communities established right through South Africa that's going to take part in this coming elections. For us in Johannesburg, unfortunately, we were a bit too late getting everything off the ground, so we haven't been able to register in time for this election at the IEC, but there's quite a couple of other communities right through the country that has managed to do that, and it's probably going to be kind of a pilot in this local elections, but we will be gearing up over the next 4 years, and there's going to be by-elections. There's continuously by-elections in every municipality, so we will be keeping our eye open for those by-elections so that we can participate, and over the next 4 years already get a couple of councillors elected into our local government. Thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciate that you've listened to us, but there's going to be a video that will be played that will give you a bit more insight into the whole countrywide movement of this community forum initiative. Thank you very much.